All right, welcome to the 5 a.m. grind. Harris, what's up, man?
Not that much, man. What's up with you?
It's good. It's good. It's good. New setting. Are you in the office or at home?
I am working from my basement today.
From your
I will be
basement?
back in
Okay.
the office next week, God willing. But today I'm coming from the
You're
basement.
working
Live.
from the basement. Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Weather in Toronto is amazing. Summer. I'm really looking forward to this summer after all of these lockdowns and COVID and everything else. I'm really looking
And
forward to
and
this
we had
summer.
snow in April, man. We had snow
We did.
last month.
We did.
It was just insane. I was
It
just
was
like,
kind of
are you
nuts.
serious?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. No, no, that it was kind of nuts. It was kind of nuts. No lie, no lie. It was nuts. We haven't done the podcast in a little while, because I guess it's been Ramadan as well. We've been fasting and busy with work. But hopefully, I know we said this last time, but hopefully this time around, for real, we'll get more consistent with just putting out
yeah,
episodes, doing
yeah.
interviews, all of the
I miss
rest,
these.
etc.,
I
etc.
miss these conversations, man. I
No,
miss
I
these
do. I do
conversations.
miss these conversations. It's funny. Before the actual taping of this podcast, we actually had another podcast almost just as a catch up.
Yeah.
So I thought for this week's episode, Horace, we'd cover the topic of hiring in business. Is it underrated? So full disclosure, I am currently hiring for a position for my company. So I thought this would be a topic that is appropriate for us to cover. I wanted to cover 5 questions. Number 1, why is hiring important? Number 2, how do you hire well? Number 3, what's the most important thing to look for when you're hiring someone? Number 4, how can you reduce risk when you're hiring someone? And number 5, if we have time, how do you correct a hiring mistake? So number 1, Harris, why is hiring so important?
Uh, Only way your business can grow. When it comes
Yeah,
down to it, it's the only way a business can grow, and that you can create a robust business. If you want, you could always be a solopreneur, but if you want, solopreneurs do not take vacations. I mean, I guess they could, but it's not that easy. But if you want to have something where you're growing, you're going to have to, or some decent organization, and you need to hire somebody in order for a firm to grow.
yeah, the 100%, 100%. It's funny, as I started my business as well, and it's like, I guess every entrepreneur or founder goes through this journey. In the beginning, I thought I was doing everything, and I'm like, look, it's being done so well. I take care of everything. It's great. But then you realize if you want a big business, the only way you can get there is by hiring other people. That's how you scale.
Yeah,
That's how you grow.
yeah,
You can't do everything yourself.
yeah,
It's impossible. You have to have people. And it requires you to become a leader. So you have to delegate. You have to be comfortable with
yeah.
other people doing the work. They might not do it the way you want, but you have to be okay with that. You have to set rules, processes, direction, for them to do it as close as to the way you would do it. But that's what hiring's all about.
I mean, I would say, so within my legal practice, I'm talking to a lot of mortgage broker owners, right?
Yeah,
Ones who really, and even within, like, there's one thing where, for those of you who don't know, mortgage brokers are individuals in selling or not selling, who are acting on your behalf to get you a mortgage if you're buying a house or even some commercial property. And they've got like 50, 100 lenders, and they're going out and they'll work on your behalf, having to see what you can get, that they'll actually go and get you a mortgage. And
yeah,
I've seen time and time again, that even within broker owners, there's different individuals. They have different goals, and I'm not saying any of these goals are bad, but the ones that made it big, and by big, I would qualify them big as I would define it, as in they're doing they're a lot of business. There's a lot of volume being done. They all had to hire people, and I speak to them often about that beginning, and every single person has had a, I guess, an inner struggle, an inner period of growth, where they're going from doing the work themselves to delegating that work. And it takes discipline to start pushing that work out,
hmm,
and personal growth. Because everybody's kind of like, what you're saying, where it's like, I do it so well, and
yeah,
I need to make sure that, like, everything is done a certain way. And there's nothing wrong with that, because essentially you're creating what I would define the beginnings, the seeds of the culture for your organization. But then in order to make it grow, you need to be able to, promote that culture to everybody else.
Correct. 100%. And it's one of those things. I go back to that interview we did with the founder of Paramount, Muhammad Faqih. And what he said was, opening one restaurant is great, but opening a second restaurant, a third restaurant is what makes you a true entrepreneur. And, you might not have the best hummus, but you have the most consistently good hummus, which is like 80% of what the best is. And I think I'm realizing the same too. Like if you want good, like you want to grow, you need to be okay with, okay, your quality might not be 100%, it might 80%, but it's still good enough. It's still good enough. And it's not to say that you deliver shit service. That's not what this means. It means like, and in some aspects of the work you do, yes, it's like the way you want it, you do it, because it's high value work, advisory work. I get involved in that. I definitely will take care of my clients there. But some of the other stuff, sometimes it's done by someone else and it's not the way I would do it, but it's good enough. It tells you the information that you need.
So I got a question though.
Yeah.
Are you CC'd in like all the communication going in and out with your employees to like maybe the higher value clients?
Yes. So
Okay.
most communications, yes, I am.
Okay. So have you ever come across an email where, and I'm just asking out of curiosity.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Right. Where so they're asking a question that's pretty important. One where whatever you deem important. They're sending in a question, but it's addressed to your employee. How do you approach that? But you're CC'd in it.
Yeah.
Do you just kind of like they'll figure it out? What do you do?
Yeah. It's, I think my answer on this would change once if you talk to me a year down the road, 100%. Right now, I'm a bit more hands-on. If there's something that I know will trip them up, I get involved. I'm like, do you need help with this? Or can you like figure this out, look here, there, etc. I'm very, sort of more clear with my direction. But sometimes I don't hesitate to go, like sometimes things come to me and I'm like, hey, could you handle this?
Yeah.
They tend to be more straightforward ones as well. But I can see how eventually, like, I'd expect my employee to handle even some of the more complex matters,
But so if they send out a question, do you then go to your employee and your team member and say, hey, like, do you know how to handle this? Maybe this is what you should look at. And then they kind of do everything and respond. Or would you ever kind of interject and be like, no, well, this is the answer. Just give it to the client.
I do the former. And the reason why I learned this on Twitter, funny enough, you're trying to create problem solvers, not problem communicators, right? Because if I fix all your mistakes for you, then why am I paying you? Why am I paying you? What's the point?
No,
right? Like I'm paying you because our job is ambiguous. There are those subjective situations that you need to be dealing with. So that's where you really make your money, right? Because you're dealing with subjectivity. The other day-to-day stuff, like anybody can do, it's nothing special, right? That's what you're really getting paid for.
Dude, in the beginning, I would say for me, it was very difficult. That part was very difficult. If an email came in, I'm just like, oh man, like, just like sometimes I feel like responding and giving the answer because I know the answer, but you have to be patient enough to let everybody else kind of go through it and understand. And like you said, become problem solvers.
Correct. That's very important. I guess question number 2, how do you hire well? You've done quite a bit of hiring. What are some of the tips you would give somebody?
So I don't like to hire based on experience, or I don't really care as much about experience. Experience is good, like within the industry. But I like the 2 really like top things in my list are communication and teamwork. So, and I know it sounds kind of cliche, but like, let me unpack it. Like, it's like with communication, I'm talking about the way you write your emails. How are they written? Are they coherent? Can you describe complex issues in a very simple manner? Are you able to understand what you know and what you don't know? And then, because that is just important, like what you don't know and knowing what you don't know is just as important as what you know, because then hey, listen, I need to go and speak to somebody about this because I don't know. And instead of kind of just jumping into it and thinking, oh, well, this was kind of like that, and making your own decisions. So communication and the aptitude of just reading and understanding what's being thrown at you, to put things in place, like that kind of quality, and then being able to then cooperate and again communicate, but cooperate and work with everybody else on the team within the company and any external stakeholders as well. So you got to be like, if you combine that, like for example, when we're doing a transaction, we're dealing with, as a law firm, we're dealing with our clients who are buying the house, right? Or they could be selling it. We're dealing with the other side's law firm. We're dealing with realtors. We're dealing with bankers. We're dealing with, and everybody has their own kind of perspective, their own interest in that transaction. And you need to be intelligent enough to figure out what you can and cannot say to each party and how to keep like that transaction going. So your communication skills have to be so good, and your teamwork skills have to be like perfect as well. It doesn't matter, like, like it doesn't matter if you have past experience. You have past experience, some people do, and they're kind of maybe not in the front lines, and they're kind of just doing one small part of the piece, which is maybe you don't really have to talk to too many people. I don't like that. That's not well-rounded. I would take I'll take a fresh grad any day, any day, who can speak well, read well, and write well, and is willing to work with everybody, over somebody who has 10 years worth of experience and is just stubborn.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I guess what you're just saying ties in really well to the third question, which was going to be, what's the most important thing you look for when you're hiring someone? And I think what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, the most important thing you look for is attitude. It's not necessarily skill set.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not, I mean, I would say it's not experience. Skill set, like communication, I would argue is a skill set, no? Like communication.
True.
But it is definitely attitude, man. If you're coming in every day, you're showing up on time, you're willing to learn and can learn, right? Unfortunately, there is like an IQ requirement for a lot of these positions. Like you do need to be able to have the aptitude to understand it. But if you're willing to show up, then I remember there was I forget the guy who said it. I was watching a clip on YouTube, and it said that it was talking about the type of members that Navy SEALs likes, where if you draw like a grid, and on the x-axis you have like loyalty, and on the y-axis you have you could say output or production. Ideally, everybody would like somebody who's high producing and high on loyalty, right? And nobody wants low producing and low on loyalty. But the Navy SEALs will, in absence of the high production, high loyalty, will take somebody who is medium production, high loyalty, or even low production, high loyalty over somebody who is high production and medium loyalty or low loyalty. It was Simon Sinek.
That guy. Yeah,
he's the one who said it, right? So he's like, and Navy SEAls are like one of the most elite, you could say, organizations in the world. And he's like, how like organizations today, we measure for output and productivity, but we don't measure for loyalty. So,
interesting. I never thought about it.
And by loyalty, I just mean like, I feel like it's more like what he's trying to say is teamwork, like what's your attitude and how are you going to work well with everybody.
Right. And it's the whole thing about, you could get somebody who has 20 years of experience, let's say, but if they don't want to learn like a new technology or a new system, and they're like, no, I'm set in my ways, I'm going to do it this way just because I've done it this way, that's really hard to deal with. Right? Because you want somebody who's like, okay, I have done it this way, but here's a better way to do it. And why don't we do it this way, as opposed to sticking to the way I've done it for 20 years.
I mean, that's like in the legal field, there's a lot of issues with that, because there's individuals who still want to fax and use dockets and print every single page out and all this other stuff. And the thing is okay, I know that's what you know how to do and that's what you're gonna stick to, but like when you create a program, you can get so much information, be so much more productive with that than but it just, you have to move out of your comfort zone to learn it so that you can be productive. So there's a downtime where you're
Yeah.
learning it, but then productivity shoots up, but people
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
care, right?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. 100%. Agreed. Number 4 was going to be, how do you reduce risk when you're hiring someone? There's the traditional interview process where you try to, and really an interview is like a risk reducing process, right? You try to
Yeah.
understand what the person's
Yeah.
like, et cetera, et cetera. But let's be honest, you've gone through this. I've seen it as well. You don't know how the person is like until they're
Yeah.
actually doing the job. How
Yeah.
do you reduce risk, do you think, when you're making
Man,
hiring
I
decisions?
honestly, I feel like um I'm gonna come off, I guess, a little mean, a bit of an
Mm,
ass, but I feel like there's certain things that you just find out when you hire the person,
yeah.
and you should be just as okay to fire them as you are to hire them. And there's going to be some churn because if you go online, right, how many websites do you see in terms of um, recruiters or companies kind of posting on how you should answer certain questions, right?
Yeah.
So there is sometimes an asymmetry in terms of the information that both
Yep.
sides have, right?
Yeah.
Like a potential candidate definitely has more information on your company, especially if your company's doing a good job and it's marketing and it's advertising. It knows the culture better than you know of that person who's trying to come in. So they're going to more often know what to say um, to be kind of passing through those interviews. And as
Yeah.
much as like you could say that you're going to go through those questions and you'll be able to spot the people who are kind of faking it. Um, People do slip through the cracks, and that's
Hmm.
fine. And sometimes it's not even that they're slipping through the cracks and that they're being malicious or anything like that. Sometimes the words that we're using may be the same, but what we mean or the meaning that we put to them, attribute to them, is different. So I'm very open to, like, I don't sweat firing people. You go through probation. If it's not working out, goodbye, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just like, hey, goodbye. It's like throughout the probationary period, there's an ongoing dialogue, like, hey, this is what our company does, this is what you're not doing, this is what you should be doing, this is so there's improvement. Is letting people know, like, this is what you need to do. And people are never fired. I'll tell you something from my perspective. Yeah, in our organization, people are never fired for something that they don't know, right? They're fired for, I've given you like 5 assignments, and each time you've come back and they're not complete. And then I have to go through it and see, like, okay, have you really done every single step? And you've been given all the steps and it's been explained to you, and you've done this repeatedly. So those individuals, okay, goodbye, or like the work that you're doing, you're you may have said that you're able to do this, but it was misunderstood, or maybe there's something lines were crossed. I don't know. And we thought of it to be a certain way, but it really isn't. So I feel like there's just a lot. Like I don't know. We've probably fired as many people as we've hired over the years, just
Mm,
because fired more people than we've hired, just because yeah, just the fit is not right. The
yeah.
attitude, it is the attitude. The attitude is
Yeah.
not right.
Yeah. No, interesting. I do the same as well. 3-month probation to see how
Yeah,
it works out, because it's really tough to know from the get-go, just from an interview, how the person is going to work out. A 30-minute interview is just not enough for you to
yeah,
know how this person works, what their attitude is like, what their approach is like,
yeah,
how they'll learn certain things. It's very, very, very tough to know that just from one 30-minute interview.
yeah.
It's
No,
really tough,
100% with you,
really,
man.
really tough, really tough, really tough. Okay, and the last one was going to be how do you correct a hiring mistake, but I think we've covered that one. You said
Hiram.
you've let go. Yeah, you've let go of
Yeah.
people as many as you've hired. So that's interesting. I guess as a business owner, when you're looking at hiring, what are some key like top 3 tips you would give a person just about the importance of hiring and how to go about doing it?
I would say number one thing about importance of hiring is before you even start looking at hiring, understanding what the attitude you have going into the hire, right? By attitude, I mean what kind of leader are you? You don't have to be 100% ready. It is a learning curve, especially if it's your first hire, but be ready to kind of delegate and know that the work that's being produced is not going to be exactly how you did it. Again, here's the other thing, and going back to the example that we spoke about earlier, where the hummus, it doesn't have to be 100%, it has to be 80%, but consistent. Well, but 100% according to who? You know what I mean? There's no hummus in the world that everybody in the world likes.
Correct,
right?
correct.
Like what that kind of shows is that 100% to me is what I think is 100%, but it's not 100%. You know what I mean? It's like 80% hummus could be 100% to enough
Someone
people.
else. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is something that needs to be understood, that you may not be doing it, like the employee may not be doing things the way you are, but it does not mean what they're doing is wrong, because they are now speaking to a different segment of the market, which is going to help your business.
Correct.
So that's
correct.
That diversity, like, definitely it's something that you need to have in your corporate culture before you make that first hire. So that's the first thing. Second thing is when you're hiring, I would say just make sure that once you've hired somebody, your job is to take care of that person and ensure that they have all the tools they need to do their job like as good as they possibly can get, right?
Yeah.
And like we spoke about earlier, an environment where they're learning and they're not kind of just reiterating whatever they were told. They're not a puppet that's just speaking somebody else's words. They understand why they're doing what they're doing, and they're not going to understand that in the beginning, but you need to create a culture and an environment that happens. And lastly, if you hire somebody, don't be afraid to fire somebody.
Right. What
about you?
Yeah. I'd say very similar along the lines to what you said. So number one, understand that if you want to grow a big business, hiring is critical. It is important. Number two, these decisions are reversible, like you said. So there's no need to look at it as, an irreversible decision. And number three, I'd say along the lines of what you said, attitude over anything else. A person with the right attitude can learn, can grow, and that is more important than just having somebody who's experienced and doesn't want to grow, doesn't want to learn, doesn't want to be pushed in different ways. Because let's be honest, every day my business changes. Like there's different things that happen. I get different inbounds, different inquiries. Client wants different things. Clients leave, new clients come. You got to be okay with changing it up. If you're not, and you're not adaptable and you're not okay with change, you can't really last in this business.
Or any business, man.
Or any
you can't last in the business of business.
Yeah, correct. You need to be able to be okay with change and just adapting yourself. Cool. Shall we leave it there?
Yeah, if anybody wants, you are hiring, so what are you what's the biggest position you're hiring for?
I'm hiring for a senior bookkeeper position. So if anybody's looking to want an accounting or a bookkeeping position, apply on LinkedIn. Just search up vertical CPA. You will see the job posting and you can send your resume through LinkedIn.
Awesome. Make sure you have a good attitude.
Yeah, make sure you have a good attitude. Bam, there you go. Nice way to end it.
Yep.
All right, Horace, we'll end it there. Yeah, take care, guys. Have a good one.